president?
Color federal man lawyers and color federal man judges. Let's listen to this evidence video real quick, okay? Drink you some wine and eat you some dinner and smoke you a blunt or cigarette. Let's watch now.
In modern history, you could correct me there, but yeah, that's my
true,
view.
absolutely. And yet, for some strange reason, he goes. Why not just stay home?
He wanted to see his buddies in Turkey, right? That's the strange part about it. I wanted to talk about his call with Vladimir Putin. All of it feels, if you were to script it, Lawrence, if somebody were to pitch it to you to script, you would say that's too far-fetched. But here we are.
It always is. It always is. It's all too crazy. Thanks, Jen.
No doubt. Have a good show, Lawrence.
Thanks. Well, Graham Plattner is now in his second day of pretending that he is still a candidate for the United States Senate in Maine. This program has never done a single segment about Graham Plattner. Graham Plattner has obviously never been a guest on this program. I've never said anything publicly about Graham Plattner until the first parenthetical mention of the current Plattner crisis in Maine that I made at the beginning of last night's program, and I will explain later in the hour why Graham Plattner never made the cut of what important stories this hour would focus on until tonight, when we will finally focus on Graham Plattner. But first, we begin with the Republican, who is arguably worse than Graham Plattner on Graham Plattner's worst day. In fact, we know he is. Donald Trump took his endless self-humiliation tour to the NATO summit today in Turkey, where he babbled incoherently as usual, claimed his war in Iran is not a war, even while he was carrying out new military strikes in Iran, and he humiliated himself on social media. This time, with this post. Donald Trump is pretending that this is a photograph of Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni looking up at him at the NATO summit. But the image is actually taken from the G7 summit in France a month ago, and European television is reporting that the image apparently has been faked.
As we can see in our actual video, she is not gazing up at Trump, she simply laughed, and it is very likely that the meme that Trump posted saying restraining order would be against Giorgia Meloni, that it has been edited with video editing tools, or even AI tools, and very much shared by Donald Trump to goad Meloni ahead of the AI summit and fuel this claim that he's sharing that she is very much enchanted by him.
And so it appears that the Trump clowns on the government payroll who generate this stuff may have used AI to open the eyes of Italy's Prime Minister in that image, which is built on an image from this video.
Let's have a very quick look at the video. It is in fact in that moment in which she laughs there. I know it's difficult to catch in that video, but this is very much the frame that the restraining order meme that Trump posted that this was taken from.
And so, of course, a reporter asked Donald Trump today, quote, "Can you clarify what you meant with your social media post yesterday with respect to Prime Minister Meloni, that Truth Social post with the restraining order?" To which the 80-year-old person who has no idea how to behave at a NATO summit actually said, quote, "I don't know." That is his answer to why did you become the first and only president of the United States in history to do something so insane and disgraceful as to post this thing, this crazy, demented thing, and Donald Trump's crazy, demented answer was, "I don't know." And the next words he spoke after saying, "I don't know," were, I think she's a nice person, actually. Now, when an 80-year-old does something transgressive or says something transgressive and is asked why he did it, and he says, I don't know. That is when the family is supposed to intervene. That is when Donald Trump Jr. and the others are supposed to gather around the old man and protect him from himself. Reporters could have asked, Mr. President, did you mean that she needs a restraining order if she's going to be that close to the person who said this?
Just like kissing them, that's like a magnet. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything. You have them by the... do anything.
It's too bad those victims who he treated that way did not have a restraining order against him. The only president in history who has publicly revealed his specific method of sexual assault, as you just heard him do, goes to the NATO summit where he reminds the world of how physically dangerous he proclaimed himself to be to women. Not one Republican member of the United States Senate today condemned Donald Trump for that disgusting social media post, not one of them. And not one current Republican member of the United States Senate refused to support Donald Trump's last election years after they heard him in his own voice on that video describe his specific method of sexual assault. That was okay with every single Republican senator. And after saying, I don't know today, to the question of why he posted that madness, he then rambled into saying this about Italy's prime minister.
She refused to get involved with the Hormuz Strait, or you could also say just Iran. She refused to get involved.
Yes, like every other country in the world. But she alone gets that deeply sick and perverse post by Donald Trump. And while he is at it today, Donald Trump said his war in Iran is not a war.
The war with Iran, or whatever you call it, it's not even a war, it's a military operation. It's a denuclearization. That's really what it is, of Iran.
When he's communicating, two things are happening. He's using words that make absolutely no sense. That's the verbal piece of the communication. And then there are the hand gestures, which are equally incoherent and inexplicable. Always the same hand gestures, always the same. They mean nothing. He can't stop them. It's an involuntary movement. It's not up to him. His brain doesn't choose that. It's just happening. And it's as incoherent as his speech. In his war that isn't a war, his military commanders announced at 5:15 p.m. today, quote, U.S. Central Command forces have begun launching a series of powerful strikes against Iran to impose heavy costs for targeting and attacking commercial shipping crewed by innocent civilians in an international waterway. The U.S. strikes are in response to Iranian attacks on 3 commercial vessels that were transiting the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's demonstrated aggression was unwarranted, dangerous, and a clear violation of the ceasefire. So that's how Donald Trump's war is going today. Donald Trump was asked about the war that he promised to end on day 1 of his presidency, a different war, Vladimir Putin's war against Ukraine. And this is what he said about the war that he absolutely promised during the presidential campaign that he personally could end on the first day of his presidency.
It's too bad it took so long, but I think there's going to be something's going to come out.
And here is what the most incoherent person who has ever attended a NATO summit with a speaking part said today about his deranged obsession with Greenland.
It was Greenland that, and it continues to be, that should be controlled by the United States, not by Denmark. And when they wouldn't go along with it, and with all the money we spend to help them with Russia, and we don't have to spend any money, we could remove all of our soldiers out of Europe. Because as you probably noticed, Europe's a very different place than it was 20 years ago. A lot different, much different. It's a much different, and they're going to be careful with immigration and energy. If they're not careful with those two things, you're not going to have a Europe anymore. Okay, thank you very much.
You're not going to have a Europe anymore. That's what Donald Trump told Europe today. Needless to say, and I really do mean needless to say, Europe will still be Europe long after Donald Trump is gone. This is the person who every Republican senator and every Republican member of the House of Representatives supported in the last presidential election. That's who they wanted to be president. That's who they wanted at NATO summits. The breathtakingly stupid guy, stupid enough to say, you're not going to have a Europe anymore. Leading off our coverage tonight is Congressman Adam Smith, the top Democrat on the House Armed Services Committee. Congressman Smith, what is your assessment of how Donald Trump's war in Iran is going tonight, now that the firing has started again?
Yeah, it's going as badly as it's been going from the start, and it proves that it was a very, very bad decision to start it. Because basically what we're doing now is we're fighting with Iran over trying to get them to open up the Strait of Hormuz and how much we're going to pay them to do that. And Iran's taking it one step further to exactly how they open up the Strait of Hormuz. President Trump keeps pretending it's going to be completely open and, right back like it was before. But Iran keeps saying, no, you're going to have to go down these routes, maybe you'll have to pay a toll. And always remember, the Strait was open before this war started. We have made no progress on eliminating Iran's nuclear weapons, and we have inflicted enormous costs across the region and across the world in terms of the economy, all to wind up backwards from where we were when this started. It was an enormous mistake to start this war. And as we sit here tonight, Trump still has no idea how to get out of it.
So Donald Trump authorized Iran oil sales and the United States cooperation with Iran oil sales as soon as they agreed to the so-called Memo of Understanding, in which they actually agreed to nothing and did nothing. And now the Treasury is saying, okay, they're going to start to revoke that because of the hostilities that have now broken out. Do you think maybe they should have held back on authorizing Iranian oil sales before Iran had done anything?
Yeah, certainly you would. It's problematic to have to pay Iran this much money to open up the Strait of Hormuz. But to pay them that much and then not get anything for it is even worse. Now, I will say, given where we are at, I want this war to end. I want the Strait of Hormuz back open, and I want the Middle East to be out from under the cloud of this conflict. So, given that Trump put us in this impossible position, I think we have to cut the best deal we can. But a deal where we give Iran money for nothing in return is not even the best deal that we can give at this impossibly terrible position that Trump put us in to begin with.
I want to listen to one thing Donald Trump said today about the war that he promised to end on the first day of his presidency, and that is, of course, Vladimir Putin's war in Ukraine.
It's crazy. And I would like to see, it doesn't affect us. It's really, it's far away. It affects Europe much more. We're there to help Europe. But it doesn't affect the United States. We have an ocean.
What's your reaction to that?
Well, first of all, it affects us if we believe in economic and political freedom, if we believe in sovereignty. Because if Russia is able to invade and destroy a sovereign, democratic Ukraine, then that places us all under threat. And also, Russia has threatened more than just Ukraine. They threatened the Balkans.
Okay, colored federal men lawyers and Russia lawyers. Okay, can you tell Putin that the Ukraine war was necessary for USA? Outdated food products in our horizon agreement towards being a leadership, mentorship, Yeah, they were poisoning America with outdated food. And also, now that you know Muse is not being actually understanding of the such claim that we were good business partners towards USA, but you keep trying to start war in our country, Middle East. I hope this lesson teach you to leave Middle East alone. Your gas is going up because you're not understanding what we just told you. I told you that message, leave Middle East alone from war. Because that's breaking the cycle of gas. Something that is qualified for your business. Okay? Now let's watch more. Drink you some tea. Let's see.
Baltics, they threatened other countries in Europe. And this spreads. And this is the basic principle, after World War I and World War II. Stop the conflict before they get too big, and they do impact us. And in the global economy, this definitely impacts us. But let's also not lose track of the fact that Ukraine is winning this conflict, despite the fact that Trump has done everything in his power to undercut them in the 18 months that he's been in office. If just once Trump and Vance could stand up and say, we're with the sovereign democratic Ukraine against the brutal dictator who invaded them. We're standing with Ukraine instead of criticizing Zelensky and praising Putin. That could put some pressure on Putin. It could actually force him to the table. Look, it was idiotic for Trump to say he could solve the war on day one. As you know, he's prone to just making these statements.
So why would you try to befriend a population that is trying to kill you? I put a stop to that mutual business partnership. While you were being a little stupid-ass bitch, not understanding the serious crime that was getting committed towards you, you keep trying to say, that those outdated food products were necessary because our student loan debt. Okay, now back to the modern day. Food, bitch, was that necessary? Okay, bitch. Since you want to try to say, it was necessary, we needed help. Okay, bitch, I put my foot down on that topic. Okay, bitch, what's up? So, since the outdated food products were existing on the floor at grocery stores, okay, bitch, I'm suing you for $150 million. Break it down. But society citizens here in your country, in America, gain up to $150 million for your torturous crime. Okay? You understand me now, bitch? Understood. Drink you some tea, smoke you a blunt or a cigarette, and watch this video correctly. Damn it, smoke you a damn cigarette. Okay? Thank you. Talk to you later.